Hello, can you all hear me? Okay, so I start here and I will switch off my video to make sure that the internet connectivity stays good. So from this moment on, I will have only the audio. So today, we are going to discuss about the body and mind, the human persona, and how Ayurveda looks at the human body. Okay, thank you for the feedback. So we look at the Ayurvedic worldview is very different from that of Western medicine. And this is why Ayurveda has a different way of looking at the human body, both in health and disease. So I'm sorry for some Sanskrit words in this slide, but we will be going to the English versions of this in the next slides. In Ayurveda, we have a comprehensive framework to understand the human body. So even though you will see some Sanskrit words, I will explain what it means in English. So first of all, in Ayurveda, we study the human body from the framework of its relationship with the entire universe. So the first step in the study of the body is called as Srishti Sharira, which means an understanding of the connection between the macrocosm and the microcosm. So how is the universe created and how is the human body created from the whole universe? So this is an understanding of this relationship. And then we have Garbha Sharira, which is the development of the embryological development of the human being, how conception occurs and how the baby grows in the womb and how, the full human being evolves. And then we have what is called as dosha sharira, which is an understanding of the human body from the framework of the three doshas, which many of you must have heard. It's an understanding of the functional and structural organization of the body. So this topic is dealt with under dosha sharira. And there are some other elements which are unique to Ayurveda in the study of the human body, and one of this is marma sharira. At this point, I would like to ask, how many of you have heard of the term marma? Yes. So the marmas are vital points. Is there anybody who has not heard about marma? The marma is actually a vital point. So in Ayurveda, we study the human body from the point of view of the vital points. So this is called as marma sharira, and this is a understanding of the subtle anatomy of the human body. And then we have the samkhya sharira, which is actually very much related to anatomy as we understand in modern science and modern medicine. And next we have prakriti sharira. This is a very special concept in Ayurveda of physical and mental constitution. And then finally, Vikriti Sharira is how the body disintegrates, what is death. And so, the understanding of the human body in Ayurveda is comprehensive. It begins from the birth of the universe to the birth of the human body, its various developmental stages, and then ending in the death of the human body. So this is the overall framework which we will be looking at today. And now we will briefly have an overview of each one of these concepts. The first one is the Srishti Sharira. So in a later session, we will also be looking into the Ayurvedic understanding of how the physical universe is made. And here I would like to get clarification from you. The word Srishti actually means creation. So have you heard of the Pancha Mahabhutas? Yes. So according to Ayurveda, the Pancha Mahabhutas represent the dynamics of the transformation of matter and energy. So it is the perpetual conversion of matter and energy into each other through 5 phases. So this is called as Pancha Mahabhutas. And so according to Ayurveda, the entire universe is made of the same stuff, which means that the human body is also made out of the same stuff of the external universe. So which is why medicine is possible. We can use substances in the external world to treat problems that occur to the human body because the fabric of the entire universe is the same Panchamahabhutas. So I will stop this concept here because today's lecture doesn't warrant a very detailed discussion of Srishti Shariram. But I just want you to understand the fact that Ayurveda has tried to see this connection between the microcosm and the macrocosm. And in Ayurveda, it's a fundamental concept that the human being is a miniature universe. The human being is a miniature universe, that the microcosm contains the essence of the macrocosm. So that's Srishti Shariram in brief. And the message that we take from this discussion is that it's because the same Panchamahabhutas make up the universe as well as the human body. This is the basis of rational treatment. We can use external substances, study their composition, and then understand how it works on the human body, and that's how medicine is developed. Next we have Garbha Shariram, and this is actually the evolution of the human body from the time of conception to the time of birth. So in Ayurveda, a lot of measures have been advised on how to prevent congenital as well as genetic disorders. So even before conception, there are a lot of descriptions on how to test the quality of the male and female reproductive elements, and how to ensure that the couples are, counseled from a genetic point of view, and that conception occurs in a very ideal and congenial environment so that the chances of genetic diseases are minimized. And also during pregnancy, there is something called as Ayurvedic pregnancy care. So the Ayurvedic pregnancy care is aiming to reduce the chances of congenital anomalies and also to prevent problems to the mother during pregnancy, like gestational diabetes or gestational hypertension, then eclampsia and other complications that can occur during pregnancy, and also to maintain the nutritional status. Ayurvedic texts describe the month-by-month evolution and development of the fetus and what needs to be done in different stages. So this is a very important aspect of the Ayurvedic understanding of the human body, and this is called as Garbha Shariram. Next, we have Dosha Shariram. So this is an element which makes Ayurveda different from modern medicine. Modern medicine is based on anatomy and physiology. So in the previous class, okay, I'm sorry for that interruption. It's based on anatomy and physiology. But in Ayurveda, we have a concept, a view, a systems biology view of the human body. I like to get a feedback at this point because I'm not seeing your faces. Is everything okay now? Is the sound okay? And are you able to follow what I'm saying? Okay, great. If there's any difficulty, please let me know immediately, because unfortunately I'm not able to see your responses and I'm speaking to a blank screen. Yes, so Dosha Shariram represents the Ayurvedic view of a systems understanding of the structure and function of the human body, and this is basically based on Dosha Shariram. And at this point, I would like to give you some understanding of what the doshas are. Since I mentioned in Srishti Shariram that the Ayurvedic understanding of the universe as, a play, a perpetual exchange of matter and energy as understood through the Panchamahabhutas, the Dosha Shariram is a biological understanding of this phenomenon. For example, you can say that Vata represents utilization of energy. And Pitta represents transformation of energy. And Kapha represents the preservation of energy. So the three doshas tell us that the body is organized in a dynamic way to preserve, transform, and utilize energy. This happens in continuous cycles. In fact, living itself means to be perpetually engaged in an exchange of matter and energy, and the three doshas explain how this processes can be balanced. It's the equation of the balance of the sum total of the physico-chemical processes that happen inside the human body. So that's one way also to look at dosha shariram. And this is an understanding that is very special to Ayurveda and is a systematic approach to understand the relationships between the functions and properties. Next, we have marma shariram. So according to Ayurveda, we can manipulate not only the structure but also the subtle functional elements of the human body by identifying certain locations which are called as marmas. And according to Ayurveda, these points represent the organization of the flow of prana in the human body. Prana can be considered like is life force. So some of these marmas are anatomical structures which when injured can cause severe problems, but some of these marmas are also subtle points. They may interface with the nervous and the immune systems of the body, and we are able to reset and correct many of the imbalances in the human body by manipulating the marmas. So this is again a unique understanding of the human body from the Ayurvedic viewpoint, and this is dealt in detail in that division called as marma shariram. Next we have sankhya shariram, and this is where there is a convergence in modern medicine and Ayurveda. Sankhya shariram deals with anatomy, the physical anatomy of the human body. So physical anatomy of the human body and the general physiological considerations make up only one aspect in the Ayurvedic study of the human body. Then we have again a unique concept in Ayurveda is the prakriti or constitution. So we have both physical and mental constitution. The physical and mental constitution are very important when we decide what lifestyle a person has to follow, what diet a person has to take, what kind of treatments a person should be administered. So assessment of prakriti is a very important clinical procedure in Ayurveda, and this is also studied at the outset to understand human body from an Ayurvedic viewpoint. And then we also have what is called as vikriti shariram or death, how death happens and how can we prevent untimely death, because Ayurveda says that there are two types of death, the timely death which we cannot avoid and the untimely death which happens due to bad lifestyle and wrong way of living. So the entire goal is to prevent untimely death. So for that, Ayurveda discusses what is death and what factors actually can help us to prolong death. So together, Ayurveda tries to paint a complete picture of how the body, evolves from the universe, how it manifests through embryological development, through birth, through the various stages in life, and finally how it disintegrates and gets destroyed. So this was just an introduction to the topic about the human persona, and we discussed briefly about how Ayurveda looks at the body. But before that, I would like to just pause for a moment to ask if there are any questions or any clarifications that you would like to ask at this point. anywhere you need a little bit more explanation, or of course many of the things we will discuss later, but on the whole I just wanted to know whether you could comprehend this framework. Okay, thank you for the feedback. So then we move on. If there are no questions at this point, then we go to the next slide. So we discuss a little bit about the body, how the body evolves, but in Ayurveda, the human being is considered to be more than just the body. So the human body is considered to be like a tripod. It consists of the body, the mind, and the self. And so it's in order to understand the human being completely, we need to go beyond the body to the mind and the self of the individual. And this is what makes Ayurveda different from maybe a more reductionistic approach of modern science. And I want to tell that in Ayurveda we have different models of the human persona. So this is one interesting thing that we see. Ayurveda has tried to understand the complexity of the human body. The one key message that we get is that the human body cannot be reduced to one single framework. It is very complex. So one explanation or one model cannot completely capture its complexity. So in Ayurveda, we have different models, and I would like to introduce some of them today by way of an example. We have a two-dimensional view, we have a three-dimensional view, we have a four-dimensional view, and we also have a five-dimensional view of the human body. So Ayurveda doesn't accept a one-dimensional view that the human being is only the body. The simplest model that we have is two-dimensional, that there is a gross body and a subtle body, that the human being, the essence of the human personality, doesn't get destroyed when the physical body is destroyed. This is a very important concept in Ayurveda. And so the person is somebody beyond the body, something much deeper. And even in healing, we believe that unless we are able to touch deeper into the personality of the individual, we are not able to treat him completely. And that is why the mind-body interactions are also given great importance, not only in diagnosis, but also in the aspect of treatment. So we'll look at the different models of the human persona in Ayurveda. At first, a very simple two-dimensional view. In this view, the body has two elements, the subtle body and the gross body. The subtle body is linked to the deeper self, and the physical gross body is like the external cover. So while the physical body is perishable, the subtle body survives, and this serves as the seed for the development of a new body. So this is the two-dimensional view of the human being. And then we have also a three-dimensional view which looks at the human being as a combination of the body, the mind, and the self. So in other words, the human being has three elements: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. So why this is important is that in Ayurveda we say that we cannot trace the origin of all illnesses to just the physical level. Many illnesses originate at the mental level. Even if we cannot see them, it's experientially very important. People, in many illnesses, we need to explore the deeper psychological element of the disease. So also, human beings are not only spiritual beings, but also have spiritual needs. And unless these are met, there can be tension and stress inside. And so these three levels are always given equal importance when we look at the person, assess his personality as well as disease. So I want to ask a question here at this point, that how many of you agree with this? You don't need to agree, basically. Yes. Okay. So that makes my task easier. So this is the three-dimensional view, and then we have also the four-dimensional view, that the realm of the sensory and motor functions is considered as another dimension. So the organs of cognition and conation, known as the sense organs or indriyas, link the body with the mind, making it responsive. So we know that we have sensual needs also. So Ayurveda also recognizes the sensual needs of an individual, which is different sometimes from the mental and the spiritual. I don't know whether you're able to get this point. We have our physical needs, we need physical things, we need mental things, we need spiritual things, but we also need sensual things. Our sense organs need a correct or an optimal level of inputs to be making us completely balanced. So I don't know whether you have also experienced and felt this need at the sensual level. So this is a distinction that Ayurveda makes. So this gives us the four-dimensional view of the human being and a mapping which helps us to deal with the person at all these levels. So in any disease, in any situation, we need to look at the human being at all these levels, and it even goes further. Ayurveda proposes a five-dimensional view, is at the intellectual level. So there is also the intellectual expressions. So a human being can be completely balanced only when we satisfy or bring harmony at all these five levels. So even a treatment that balances something at one level and ignores the harmony at another level cannot be complete in the long run. So all Ayurvedic treatments aim to bring balance in this five-dimensional matrix. So the human personality is a five-dimensional matrix. And we need to bring harmony in all these five dimensions. So that is the view in Ayurveda. So this has been later formalized and called as a human being having five sheaths or panchakoshas. Has anybody heard of this? Has anybody heard of the panchakoshas or the five sheaths? Yes. So those who have practiced some yoga or studied, yes. So for those who do not know, I think you can pay attention to this, that there are five levels. One is the Annamaya Kosha, the food sheath, which represents the physical body, the molecules and the organs and all that. And then we have the vital sheath, which deals with the sensory perceptions and sensory expressions. And then the thought sheath, which deals with the mind and its expressions. And then the intelligence sheath, which deals with the intellect. And then the bliss sheath, which is the deeper, innermost self of the human body. So this is the way Ayurveda understands the human persona. So this is important because, in Ayurveda we say that we shouldn't reduce an individual to a patient. Calling somebody a patient is a very restricted way of, understanding that personality. So in Ayurveda, we are treating the human persona, who's a complete, five-dimensional entity. And it's very important to distinguish between a patient and a human persona. So this concept is very much highlighted in Ayurvedic therapeutics. So, because these are some subtle concepts, again, let me ask, is this clear? Does anybody have any questions regarding the five sheets? Any further clarification needed? Clear. Okay, thank you. So now I want to, you need, if there's anything you want a little bit more explanation, I can highlight. Because these are very foundational concepts and need to be made very clear. So, is there any clarification needed? Okay. Okay. So, we will be discussing later on how Ayurvedic treatment focuses on all the 5 dimensions. Even when you take a medicine, for example, many modern medicines, one of the problems is that it may produce a positive effect on the physical body, but it produces dangerous effects on the other levels. If you look at many modern medications, you can see one of the common side effects is depression. There are many pills which say that depression is a side effect, or suicidal tendency is a side effect. So this is because these chemicals are not able to give a complete balance. So Ayurveda, yes, so many problems at different levels. Some people lose the ability to use their sense organs in a more creative way, because sense organs are windows to the mind. So that's what I mean. In Ayurveda, we have the concept of the 5 sheets. And we say unless it is an emergency situation. In modern medicine, most of the time we do this because it's an emergency, and then it is justified. But if you take these medicines over a long period of time, then they can imbalance your sheets. So Ayurvedic treatment is aimed at balancing the sheets or balancing the personality. So that is why I was trying to point out that the treatment is for the person, not for the disease. The treatment is for the person. It's not for the disease. So it's not that you want the disease to go away. You want the person to be balanced. And this is a big shift in perception. So I hope that point is clear. That's the main message I want to give through these discussions. And the body is one part of this person. So next we will see. So we consider the body as a tool to invigorate and liberate the mind. So the Ayurvedic concept is preserve the body and kill the mind. I mean, this is a poetic expression. When you say kill the mind, what we mean is that the personality has to be liberated. The small person has to become the bigger person. And that is the purpose of life. I mean, that is the purpose of education. That's the purpose of growing. That's the purpose of... So this is considered as therapeutic. That, your treatment and your medicines should all help in the expansion of the mind. The mind disappears when it becomes fully evolved and developed. And we say that it's a mind that creates a body. And that if your mind completely expands, then our consciousness becomes one with the universe. So this is also the ultimate goal of treatment in Ayurveda. So, if you now come back to a more physical level, we can say that these multidimensional views of the human persona can be summarized. The body represents matter and energy in all phases of transformation. There is the spacious body, there is the gaseous body, there is the thermal body, there is the liquid body, and there is also the solid body. So inside the body, emptiness, emotion, heat, cohesion, and structure all coexist. So this is really beautiful. Things that cannot exist together, exist together. So it's fascinating to see that the body is empty and full at the same time. This is a very interesting insight that Ayurveda gives. As we go deeper and understand the human body, you will find that all these 5 characteristics of the 5 Mahabhutas Here I must ask you, if you are all not aware of the bhutas, then you will be not able to follow this point. The bhutas represent emptiness, which is akasha or space, and then it represents motion, movement, which is vayu, or which is called as air, and then it represents heat, which is agni or fire. The body also represents the cohesiveness of physical substances, of bonding, and this is represented by up, jala or water. And then we have structure, which is prithvi, earth. So the body is at the same time all of these things together, 5-dimensional. So we can look at these aspects. So Ayurveda says that at one level the body is actually empty. The body is actually empty in one sense, because it's considered in Ayurveda as a network of macro and micro spaces. So what Ayurveda says is that the body is porous, and big spaces narrow down, and it becomes extremely micro space, that even the smallest particle can actually penetrate and go into the deeper spaces of the human body. So this is a very interesting dimension. All Ayurvedic concepts of making medicines. It's interesting to know that in Ayurveda we have different methods of making medicines. We make solutions, we make powders, we make fine powders, we make incinerated ash. It's all based on the understanding of the empty body, means as a network of spaces. So each particular dosage form is designed to reach a certain micro space of the human body. So if you want a medicine to reach a particular organ or a particular structure of the human body, it should be prepared in such a way that it can reach that space. So we will realize later the notion of the empty body is used in Ayurvedic pharmacology and in Ayurvedic understanding of drug action and of how the physiological substances in the body get transformed. So because these are some strange, maybe new concepts, again I would like to ask you at this point, is this point clear? Does anybody need any further explanation? Is it clear? Okay. Thank you. So the next point is that the body is also, it's just as if, you can see the human body in different ways. You put a different glass and then you see something different. So you see the empty body and then you also see the body of dancing particles. In this empty space, at a microscopic levels, Ayurveda says that particles are created and destroyed in the wink of an eye. It's almost that Ayurveda has a quantum physics view of the human body. I'm sure you will be fascinated to know that Ayurveda describes how the body is created and destroyed by the continuous, creation and destruction of extremely minute particles. So we say that a structure looks stable because it's just an illusion. It's actually a lot of particles moving inside so fast that it looks like everything is stationary. So the body is created by successive cycles of creation and destruction of particles. So this is the level of Vayu, which is the second Mahabhuta. And from this viewpoint, body is nothing but dancing particles. So what Ayurveda says is that our medicines, if it has to work, if it has to create a curative effect, it should be able to interact with these particles at the particle level. And that is why Ayurvedic medicines are subjected to a lot of processing, so that they are broken down into the particle level. They are extremely minute. Recent studies have shown that many Ayurvedic medicines, when you prepare them, they become transformed to nanoparticles. Have you all heard of nanoparticles? Yes. So this is because Ayurveda understands that the human body at the deepest level is made of such ultra tiny particles. And when the medicines are also reduced to that level, then it is able to interact with these particles and bring about changes. So that's how the Ayurveda views the human body as a cluster of dancing particles. And then we have the view of the human body as fire. We say that the body is on fire. It is continuously transforming. At every second, some substance in the body is being burnt and transformed. So when you look at it this way, it looks like the body is continuously burning. And because substances get transformed, this also has influenced the way Ayurveda makes medicines, because we realized that anything that we put into the body will not remain as such. The body will transform it. The body will change it into something else. So we have to understand how your medicine will be changed by the body, and accordingly we have to prepare the medicine. So this understanding has been derived from the view of the human body as a fire of transformation. So this is this fire which we call in Ayurveda also as Pitta. Pitta is the fire of transformation. I hope this point is clear. So to summarize again, I wanted to highlight how the view of the human body determines the way we plan treatment. So as I said in the beginning, from 2 dimensions to 5 dimensions, we have the person, visualize the person as having 5 dimensions. So your treatment should balance all the 5 dimensions simultaneously, and only then you can create wellness. Otherwise, you can create absence of disease but produce imbalance in some other way. And when you give your medicines, it's very important that they work at all the levels of the bhutas. This is what makes, again, Ayurvedic medicine interesting. And so here we say that your medicine should be processed in such a way that it can reach into the spaces of the human body, the minute spaces. And it should be in such a dimension that can interact with the smallest particles in the human body. And it should be in such a way that the body will transform it also in a manner that will bring back the balance. So in this way, the view of the human body has enabled Ayurveda to develop specific approaches to treatment. So next we see the body as a receptacle of the life fluid. So all these things are true, and this is what makes the human body amazing. An empty body cannot be full, but the human body is full and empty at the same time. It's full of water. So 3/4 of the human body is water. And this is called as a life fluid, or rasa in Ayurveda. Rasa is the life fluid. So it's a life fluid that sustains life. It is like the fuel of life. Rasa burns to create energy. And it is the matrix into which, so all our medicines, all our food, unless it gets transformed into the life fluid, it cannot sustain life. So in Ayurveda, we have a special method of treatment called rasayana. I don't know how many of you have heard of rasayana. It is the Ayurvedic term for rejuvenative medicine. So rasayana means that which improves the quality of rasa. So what Ayurveda says is that this is studied in modern medicine. We know that all substances that are ingested into the body will mix with the rasa, with the life fluid, and it will circulate. And it will be deposited or it will be eliminated, And we have to make sure that whatever we take inside nourishes the rasa but does not contaminate it. So Ayurvedic treatments are aiming to preserve the purity and the quality of this rasa. So this is another view of the human body. The body is a receptacle of life fluid. So is this clear? Okay. So next we go to the fifth Bhuta, which says that the body is a well-organized structure. It looks physically very solid outside, but inside it is fluid, it is fiery, it is very dynamic, and it is empty. So Ayurvedic texts describe the formation of the body from the point of view of the macrocosmic evolution of the universe, as well as the microcosmic evolution of the individual. So the human body is therefore a miniature universe. This is the point, that it is a platform in which is an outcome, a reflection of both macrocosmic as well as microcosmic evolution. And how is the body formed? This is a big debate in the Ayurvedic texts, and people discussed about how much does the mother contribute, how much does the father contribute, is the body formed from the self directly, how much does food contribute, how much does mind contribute, how much does the habits of the father and mother, the atmosphere in which an individual is exposed, all these things. So they have looked at genetic causes, they have looked at nutritional factors, they have looked at individual, influences. And finally, the conclusion is that the body is a multifactorial entity. So if you want a human body to be created with good quality, you need to follow a multifactorial approach. Just by correcting genetics, you cannot ensure. Just by correcting the environment, you cannot ensure. So you need to look at all these factors together. And that is why creation of new life became a ritual in the Ayurvedic tradition. Creating a new life was considered to be a ritual, because we needed to look at all these factors, and we had to purify the contribution of the mother. So the mother would be subjected to some treatments, would be screened for any possible genetic problems, and to the extent possible, these would be corrected even before conception. So also from the father's side. And then the nutrition. And then even at every stage of pregnancy, there would be assessments made, nutritional and other lifestyle corrections. And the whole idea was to ensure that the baby that is born is endowed with the best inheritance. So this kind of a comprehensive approach evolved because Ayurveda understood the multidimensional origin of the human body. So here I want to say that Ayurveda follows a systems view of the human body. The Ayurvedic anatomy and physiology are not descriptive. So Ayurvedic approach to understanding the human body is a synthesis of anatomy, physiology, and pathology. So the dosha, dhatu, mala. How many of you have heard of dosha, dhatu, and mala? I can try to translate them very simply. Dosha can be understood as function, and dhatu is structure, the tissues, and mala are the wastes. So at any given time, the body is continuously, you cannot remove these three things. Every part of the human body is a combination of function, structure, which continuously produces waste, so that these have to be removed periodically. And the theory does not talk about functions of individual organs and parts in great detail, but how the system behaves as a whole. So this is called in systems theory as emergent properties. Emergent properties means that the sum is more than its parts. I hope you understand. The sum is more than its parts. So we don't look at the human body just in terms of its parts, but how these parts relate to each other in complex manners. So the whole idea is that the body is an internal environment which continuously maintains an internal balance. It is able to continuously balance itself, and this balance is explained through the dosha dhatu mala theory. This is very similar to the modern concept of milieu interior and homeostasis. So this is again another aspect of the Ayurvedic understanding of the human body. And now we will go to some discussions on how the body is understood in Ayurveda. You know, today we look at, in modern medicine, we look at different systems. You have the respiratory system, you have the nervous system, you have the excretory system, you have the digestive system, you have the integumentary system, the cardiovascular system, and so on and so forth. But in Ayurveda, we don't classify the body organs on the basis of systems, of these systems, but on the basis of dosha and dhatu. Every organ represents the correlation between a dosha and a dhatu. So if you look at heart is made of rakta and mamsa. Rakta and mamsa are two dhatus. We can broadly divide them into blood and muscle. So which means, you know, diseases that affect the heart, we will have to treat the blood and the muscle. This is very interesting because this is an understanding of the structural configuration of each organ and how to target them in disease. So we know today that heart disease is also caused either by problems in the blood, which causes reduced blood flow to the heart muscles, or it could be problems originating from the heart muscle itself, like cardiomyopathy, or weakness of the heart muscle, or damage to the heart muscle. So this understanding Ayurveda derived by classifying all organs on the basis of the the dhatus, which actually, or the structures which actually make these organs. So are you all aware of dhatus? The 7 dhatus? Okay. Yes. For those of you who have not heard of it, we will be discussing it in greater detail later. But I hope you got the point that in Ayurveda we don't look at respiratory cardiovascular systems, but we look at the doshas and the dhatus, and all those organs and systems will get covered when we look at this classification. In our future classes, you will get a better understanding and appreciation of how this is applied practically. So then we have physical and mental constitution, and in our second session, we will be discussing in greater detail about physical and mental constitution. There are 7 major types of physical constitution, and then there are also variations in body types based on race, family, geography, as well as age, and there are 16 types of mental constitution categorized under 3 major headings. You don't have to worry about it now because in the second session after the break, we will be discussing this in greater detail. And it's important to realize that the interplay of the physical and mental constitution that creates the complex human personality. So, the Ayurvedic approach to study the human body, we consider this as a very dynamic structure, and there are terms which indicate, deha means that which grows, and sharira means that which disintegrates, and kaya means that which burns, and sharira stands for the study of the human body, which starts from birth to death and starts with the study of childbirth. So I want to tell you here how an Ayurvedic physician studies Ayurveda. What is the first subject to be studied? You can see in modern medicine we start with anatomy, and it is by the dissection of the dead body. But in Ayurveda, we start by seeing childbirth, how life begins, not by dissecting a dead body. This is really very, very important to Ayurveda, that we have to start studying medicine by seeing the creation of a new life and not by dissecting the remains of a dead life. Anatomy is also studied, but much later. So the sequences from birth to death, we must study the human body. So next, we have anatomy also in Ayurveda, and it is one of the aspects of the study of the human body. And I mentioned also in my previous class how Sushruta was a great surgeon in Ayurveda, and he developed a method of dissection of the dead body which was very advanced, and he also encouraged the detailed study of anatomy. However, in Ayurvedic texts, anatomical knowledge did not develop beyond a limit, and there are not very detailed descriptions of the physical features of organs, and some major organs have not been adequately described. But from a functional point of view, there is enough description of the body organs, and in this area, I think we could also benefit by incorporating some modern knowledge of human anatomy. So we would also recommend those physicians who are studying Ayurveda to, after studying Ayurveda, they can fill in some of the gaps in the anatomical understanding by studying modern accounts of anatomy. But the thing is, it's important to also bring them back to the Ayurvedic perspective, the dosha dhatu siddhanta, and in our future discussions, we will be following such an integrative approach. We will understand the Ayurvedic framework and also use some information from modern anatomical knowledge and place it within the Ayurvedic understanding. So next, we look at theories of physiology. So in Ayurveda also there has been elaborate descriptions on circulation. For example, we have all heard that it was William Harvey who discovered circulation, that blood actually flows out of the heart and comes back to the heart. But if you look at a very old textbook called the Bhela Samhita, which was probably written few thousands of years before the Common Era, you can find in this textbook, Bhela Samhita, there is a description of circulation. But the only thing is, in Ayurveda, we said that it's not blood that circulates, but it's the nutrient fluid inside the blood that circulates. And we also know today that blood doesn't come out of the capillaries. It's a nutrient fluid that actually oozes out of the capillaries. And this textbook clearly describes that the blood moves out of the heart and it comes back to the heart. So we have very early descriptions of the theory of circulation. And in recent times, this was actually published in an American Journal of Physiology. The Ayurvedic contributions to understanding circulation has been described. There's also a very early textbook called Sharanga Samhita. Please don't worry about these names, I'm just typing them for extra information. This book describes the mechanism of respiration, how respiration happens, what happens during respiration, how respiration helps to enrich the blood and kindles the entire digestive and metabolic processes of the body. We have theories of digestion, theory of excretion, and also theory of metabolism, theory of aging, and then very detailed descriptions of doshic cycles. So Ayurveda has tried to map the understanding of the human body in a very comprehensive manner. So I think I discussed this in my previous class, but because it's related to the human body, I'm just summarizing, recollecting it again, that in Ayurveda we talked about coding of genetic information. Charaka Samhita talks about 3 levels of genetic coding, the bija, the bija bhaga, and the bija bhaga avayava, which seems to correspond to the modern idea of chromosomes, DNA, and genes. So Ayurveda talks how different organs and parts of organs are mapped in the reproductive elements, and how damage can result in genetic diseases. So this is the genetics of the human body. So this is also described. And very interestingly, in Ayurveda, we also have a cellular idea of the human body, cellular view. This has not been discussed much, and the cell is known as a jiva. Jiva means living, and paramanu means, atoms. So if you were to translate the cell in Sanskrit, then it would translate as a living atom. But it's actually, you can know in today's language, we would call this as a cell. Hello, can you hear? Okay. I'm sorry, I just refreshed the page so that there's no disturbance. So I guess things should be much better now. Okay, fine. So I was just talking about the cellular view of the human body. So Ayurveda discusses about these minute entities which we translate as, living atoms. But obviously they were talking about what we are understanding today as cells. So Ayurveda says that in the human body, we have innumerable such atomic elements which divide and propagate themselves for the power of Vayu. So these units were considered to be also self-propagating. And that is why it seems to match very well with the modern concept of cells. So we also have this notion of the biological units of life as cells. So these points are also, I wanted to mention all these because in our future discussions we would be looking at how integrative medicine is possible and how Ayurvedic theories are also meshing with modern ideas of biology and medicine. So you can see these are some of the old anatomical paintings which have been preserved in many libraries around the world, where you can see descriptions on each organ's mapping of the various organs and their descriptions. So a lot of pain was taken to describe the human body in detail. And so these are some details about these illustrations that you can find in several manuscript libraries in different parts of the world. So now I want to talk a little bit about Garbha Sharira, which is conception and embryology, determination of sex, modification of sex, the genetic basis of diseases, the month-by-month growth of the fetus, description of the male and female reproductive system, details about ovulation, ovum compared to the flower. Ovulation is considered to be the flowering phase, and it's compared to a flower which later gets transformed into a fruit through conception. And in our tradition, we also have discussions about technological births, like extrauterine fertilization, surrogate mothers, cloning, test tube babies. We do not know whether these things were all practiced, but they were certainly discussed in the text. So what I wanted to point out is that in Ayurveda, the first subject is the creation of the human body. That is how we start studying medicine. And here, because the goal of Ayurveda is to promote a robust, healthy life. So how does conception occur? How can we influence conception? Is it possible to determine or modify the sex of the fetus? Is there a genetic basis for diseases? How does the fetus grow month by month? And how does actually fertilization happen? How can we control this? These are all described in Garbha Sharira. So I want to point out some practical applications which later might be of interest. We are going to discuss about the branch of gynecology. So Ayurveda has healthcare packages, for conception, which has to be individualized. So any couple who are wanting to conceive, they are assessed by their constitution and other parameters, and then they are subjected to some treatments, and then they are advised to conceive. Then there is also pregnancy care. These are all practical elements. We could discuss some simple tips later, which could be practiced anywhere in the world, but we cannot generalize. So you will need to get more specialized information to be able to practice on specific patients. And then you have another application that comes out of Garbhasharira is post-delivery care. So this, I think, is very, very important for women. They develop rheumatoid arthritis, they develop back pain, they develop varicose veins and various health problems, because we say that the first 45 days after childbirth, the woman needs special care. So there are special medicines and special treatments that are done to help the woman come out of the trauma of childbirth, which can affect the lower vertebral column, which can affect the circulation in the lower limbs, and even lead to some autoimmune responses in the form of rheumatoid arthritis. So these three, the conception care, then the pregnancy care, and the post-delivery care, are clinical applications of Garbhasharira. So any questions at this stage? Okay, I guess there are no questions. So next we go to the Marma Sharira. So Marma Sharira is the vital points or marmas, and there are about 107 points which are very important from a surgical viewpoint, and they have been classified on the basis of outcomes of injury or on the basis of anatomical considerations. And there are 10 critical life supporting locations of the human bodies, which are called as the pranayatanas. And there are 3 vital organs, which are the heart, the brain, and the urinary system, which are to be protected very specially. So in Ayurveda, we have a lot of measures to preserve and protect these vital points and organs, because we know that as we age, one of the major reasons for complicated illnesses are diseases that affect the brain, the heart, and the kidney. So we know today that a lot of people are damaging their kidneys or their hearts or their brains as they age, or even when they take a lot of medicines, these 3 organs get affected. So in Ayurveda, we have special treatment protocols for protection of the heart, for protection of the brain, and also for protection of the kidneys. And also for other vital organs. As we do treatments, we need to understand how a medicine will impact these different marmas and what measures we have to take to protect them. In the classical practical tradition of Ayurveda, up to 8,000 marmas have been identified. So it's not possible for us to study all these 8,000 marmas. And in Ayurveda, about 107 have been described, which are most important. And even within that, we might be able to look at only about 30 or 40 important marmas in our webinar. I mean, we will discuss only about the most important ones. And their applications would be, to identify the threats and how to preserve their functions, how to protect these organs when you're doing certain treatments, and how to also treat illnesses that affect these specific marma points. And these kind of illnesses are all occurring very commonly nowadays. So next we have the connection between the body and the mind. And this is very, very important in Ayurveda, that we consider the body and mind make up one single continuum. The body and mind are material in nature. They are considered to be material. And mind is not considered to be conscious. We distinguish between the mind and the self. And we say that the mind is the seed of the body. The mind is nourished by food. And the body and mind make one continuum. The body and mind are not separated. So what happens to the mind immediately influences the body. And what happens in the body influences the mind. And this is a principle that we use in treatment. That when the body is sick, we can influence the mind and give a positive impact on the body. When the body is sick, when the mind is sick, we work through the body. So both can be used to support each other. And Ayurveda talks a lot about the psycho-neuro-immunological axis, which we have understood today, how the doshas influence the mind and how the mind influences the doshas. So this is called as the pathways. Ayurveda describes in great detail about the pathways that connect the body and the mind. And today we understand this as the psycho-neuro-immunological axis, how emotions affects kapha and leads to kapha disorders, how emotional stability has a positive impact on the immune system. And in all our treatments, we have to bring back the balance of this mind-body continuum, without which our treatment will not be complete. So Ayurveda says that the mind is atomic and singular. It is so dynamic and so fast in its movements that it appears to be everywhere at the same time, just like a needle piercing a bunch of lotus petals. So the idea of the mind as extremely dynamic is very central to the Ayurvedic understanding of even training and the application in psychological illnesses. We are able to improve the attention span of the human mind, memory, and other mental characteristics. These are also part of the Ayurvedic approach to treatment. And in Ayurveda, we have also tried to understand what factors actually influence the human mind and its expression. So the mind was considered a material, and that's something which could be influenced by working also on the physical level. Like if the quality of your physical dhatus are changed, then there is an impact on the mind. Ayurveda understood very early that the mind is very much dependent on the food for its functioning. So it's a fundamental concept in Ayurveda that by controlling your food, you can control your mind. I don't know how many of you really take this concept. Control food to control mind. This is a very important concept that we will be discussing later. And we will be discussing what type of foods will influence the mind in what ways. Do you agree with this idea? Have you got some understanding or experience? Yes. So this is again a very fascinating aspect of Ayurvedic understanding of the mind-body correlation. So there was an experiment which was conducted in ancient days. Students were asked to fast for a few days, and then after fasting they are asked to remember what they learned, and then they understand that they are not able to remember them, and so it means that good nutrition is needed for the mind to function properly. So nutrition is not just aimed at supporting your physical body, but also your mind. And this we will also discuss in our next, after the break, of how the physical and mental constitution influence each other. So a very interesting aspect in Ayurveda is that we believe that the texts say that we are using only a fraction of our abilities, that there are higher hidden faculties, that the human mind can, evolve and express higher abilities. So in order to express the higher abilities, we can awaken the mind, and there are certain practices, even medicines, which are advised to enable us to enhance higher faculties like memory, sharpness of the mind, ability to engage in very complex intellectual processes. All these are considered possible by a specific regimen. So Ayurveda has a branch of medicine which specializes in mental health. So mental health is a very important idea, notion in Ayurveda, which seems to be very much ignored today. How can people be? So we can say that Ayurveda also deals with what we can call the science of happiness, if at all there was such a science. But it seems to be very central to Ayurveda, that we must, healing, if you cannot heal a person and make him happy, then your healing is incomplete. The ultimate test of healing is whether the person who underwent your treatment is able to find that inner happiness and elevate his mind to a higher level. So then we have the techniques of rasayana, rejuvenation, which when practiced at a young age can enhance immunity and achieve healthy aging. And this is very, very crucial because Ayurveda says that the mind, the body-mind relationship is important because we need our mind most when we are aged. The health of the mind should be robust when we are aged. That's when we need the complete, because our body is already, disintegrating, and we are more mental beings in old age than we were in a younger age. So Ayurveda says there's a way that you can preserve your mental functions to old age. Preserving mental functions in old age is again a very important application in Ayurveda. So there are many medicines. We can discuss some of them in our future sessions. Things which we can do at a much younger age to ensure that we will not lose our cognitive abilities when we age, that we will be also mentally more balanced when we are aged. So this is again another important aspect of the mind-body connection that Ayurveda discusses. So we can say we are almost coming to the end of the first part of our webinar today. I've kept a few moments for some discussion. Ayurveda is considered to be a user's manual. Just like any machine comes with a set of instructions on how to use and maintain it, Ayurveda, life comes with a manual which tells you how to take care of your body and how to take care of your mind. And Ayurveda, we can consider, is that user's manual which comes along with your own life. So at this point now, I would like to keep the session open. Okay, I will go back to that slide. Just 1 second. So slide number 21 was the body as a receptacle of life fluid. So I will just get to that. So you said slide number 21. This is slide number 21. So is this the one? Okay, 20 is the one before that. Okay, so this is describing how the body transforms anything that comes into contact with it. Yes. So apart from that, are there any other questions? Because we have about a few minutes to discuss something. I thought the discussion is important because I really need to know how you're able to grasp what I'm saying, because there are some different concepts, sometimes terminologies which you may not be familiar with. So if there are any areas you need clarification, we can spend the last few minutes clarifying. And then after a break, we can come back again. The So I will check with So I'm told that you can actually save the slides from this platform. You're logged into the webinar platform, and there seems to be an option to actually save this slide. So it's already shared. So is that okay? Okay. So there's another. Okay, so I think that you can sort out how to download the file, save image. There's a save image option. Right. There's another announcement that I want to. So I think we can make arrangement to share the slide on the condition that it will be not used for any commercial purposes. It will be only used for personal study, and that it will always be acknowledged. I mean, these are the three conditions on which the slides could be shared. So if you agree, then we can share the slide. Yeah. And there's one announcement. Okay. And then there's just one announcement that this Friday, I mean, there are a few days in this month where I'm traveling. So this Friday, I'm traveling. So we will not have a webinar this Friday. But the next Wednesday and the next Friday, it will happen. So this may happen once in a while because I'm having many other engagements, academic engagements, and sometimes I have to travel. Fine. So this Friday, we don't have a webinar. Yes, I couldn't avoid an official trip. Yes, so if there are no questions, then I think now we can take a break for 10 minutes and then come back and go to the. Okay, thanks. So we can have a break now for 10 minutes and be back. Hello. Okay, is my voice audible? I just want to do a voice check before we start again. Are you able to hear me? Okay, great. So now I think the settings are better. I did some tricks while we were on break, so I hope everything will go well in this session. So now we are going to talk about the human constitution, the physical and mental constitution, which is so fundamental in the understanding of the human body in both health and disease. And the title of this discussion is Managing the Body and Transforming the Mind, how we can deal with our physical and mental constitution. So you can see in this chart that according to Ayurveda, each individual can be different or similar to each other based on different factors. So at least 6 major factors have been identified, which make us similar or dissimilar from each other. But it's really very important to understand that in Ayurveda, we do not want to put people into categories. We believe that every individual is unique. Every individual is a fingerprint, and there cannot be no two individuals who are alike. And according to Ayurveda, please think about this very deeply. According to Ayurveda, one of the reasons for disease, unhappiness, and a lack of inner harmony is our lack of understanding our uniqueness, and also a lack of understanding and accepting our uniqueness, not only by ourselves, but also by the people around. So we say that in the secret to health is to know oneself. So that is why we say that Ayurveda is like a mirror. It shows you who you are and makes you accept who you are. And once that acceptance happens, then you find your right place, and then you're able to discover harmony and health. As long as you don't discover that the personality, the prakriti of yourself, then you will keep running into disharmony and you will not be able to find perfect health. So I hope this point is understood. So I like to ask at this point, do you agree with this viewpoint of Ayurveda? Okay. So now these are the 6 factors. We say that if you are born into a particular race, we don't want to promote racism, of course, because Ayurveda believes in a multicultural, multi-communal, multiracial society. And but we may share certain characteristics with each other if we belong to a particular race. If we belong to a particular family, there may be things that make us similar. But Ayurveda's focus is not on what makes us similar, but really on what makes us dissimilar. So if you belong to a certain family, you may share certain features with other family members. If you belong to a certain place, then you share certain similar characters with other people of that particular place. And in certain time periods, your body acquires certain characteristics in summer, in winter, and according to age also, all old people behave in a common way, all young people behave in a certain common way. But these things make us similar. These things make us to be grouped into certain categories. And there have been a lot of studies earlier which try to see if one race is superior to the other. To some extent, This also influences our health because we know that Indians, for example, Indians are more susceptible to cardiac problems because the coronary arteries are narrower in Indians than in Europeans. So Indians are at a higher risk for coronary artery disease if the diet is not taken well taken care of. Now, why did this happen? It's because in Europe, being a cold country, people ate a lot of fat and cheese. And so their body is used to taking a lot more fat and cheese than in a tropical climate like here. So this is the reason why, according to the nature of the place where you're born, you may have certain susceptibilities and you have to develop a diet which is suitable to your constitution. So this is just one single example. So in different places, people may have such peculiarities, certain susceptibilities. We know that people living in the cold countries are susceptible to certain diseases. In the hot climate, they're susceptible to certain other diseases. But these are all affecting individuals as groups. So these are classification based on groups of individuals. But what Ayurveda is more interested is in the individual peculiarities. So today we will be discussing about individual peculiarities which distinguish one individual from the other. Is this point clear? I was distinguishing between constitutions that are common to different people and constitution that makes each person different from the other. So that is called as the individual constitution. And these individual constitutions make us different both in our mind and in our body. So that there can be no two people who are alike. And that is the reason for celebrating our existence. Ayurveda says that we must celebrate our existence because we are unique. And finding joy and completeness in life is all related to discovering our uniqueness. And the concept of Prakriti tells you how you are unique from others, why you are behaving in a particular way, why your attitude is in a particular way. It all stems from your uniqueness. And once you understand that, then you have laid the foundation for healthy living. So you can see here, this is the first type of classification, inbreeding, where people in one group always breed within that group. They share common genetic characteristics. Crossbreeding does not happen. This is called as racial constitution. And then we have the familial constitution, which are traits that are preserved and transmitted within families. And families do not inbreed, actually they crossbreed. And in India, people belonging to some certain same family lineage were not allowed to marry because this would transmit certain genetic diseases. So the purpose of racial constitution is to understand certain, from a medical point of view, it's important to know this constitution because it helps us to understand certain susceptibilities that people have. Even today we know Afro-Americans are susceptible to certain illnesses. Native Americans are susceptible to certain illnesses. So in this way, this is important to understand racial constitution. And familial constitution is important to understand so that we can prevent certain diseases from getting transmitted across families. And so this is why that is also discussed in Ayurveda. And then we have the constitution that affects people, that are created to people living in certain places. So these are today understood as epigenetic influences. I'm sorry, I did not get that word. Syed? Miracle? You mean miracle? So here we are talking about epigenetic influences. So people living in a particular place may develop certain characteristics because of the influence of the environment in which they are living. And in Ayurveda, we say that at a distance of 180 kilometers, the climate and surroundings can change. And this has been especially true of India. In India, we have different climatic zones at very short intervals. And these definitely affect the entire genetics of the individual. Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, thanks. Yes, indeed. Each person's life is a miracle. And Ayurveda tells that you must look at the mirror and discover that you are a miracle, that you are unique. And that self-estimation, that self-understanding helps you to center and establish yourself in a state of health and well-being. It even boosts your immune system. Understanding Prakriti can boost your immune system. It can drive away depression. So if you understand your Prakriti correctly and appreciate, then it has a very strong immune enhancing effect, and it can destroy depression and give you a sense of deeper inner joy. So that is why Ayurveda has given a lot of importance to this. So this is epigenetics. I hope all of you have heard of epigenetics. Okay. Yeah, so epigenetics is the influence of environment on the genes. So even if your genes have a certain tendency, they can be up or down regulated by the influence of the environment. So this is a good prospect that by adaptation you can overcome many of your genetic tendencies. So this is epigenetics, and living in certain places can actually have a very positive or negative influence on you. So when you understand your Prakriti, you're actually able to place yourself in the exact time-place matrix, which is more suitable for you, where your energy will express to its fullness, and it will not only enrich you, but also enrich the people and nature around you. So that is the principle of Ayurveda. So now we have next human behavior and characteristics change according to seasons and time. So even summer and winter and spring and autumn, people living in places where there is more of rain. A simple example is people living in countries without much sunlight will get depression. I hope you're aware of that. Depression is linked to lack of sunlight. So if there is not enough sunlight, then you get depressed. So in the Nordic countries, this is a problem. When there are long periods of darkness without much sunlight, then people tend to get, depressed. So I hope all of you are aware of that. So these are seasonal cycles which can greatly influence the way we behave, and this is also understood and explained in Ayurveda. And then finally we have age. People behave differently according to their different ages. So the behavior in childhood is different. Behavior in adolescence is different. Behavior in youthhood is different. Middle age is different. Old age is different. So people share certain common physical and mental characteristics according to their age. And this also changes social attitudes, behavior, And these are all things that affect individuals in groups. These affect individual as groups, not one individual. Everybody gets affected because of these factors. So now we are coming to that factor which affects individuals independently. This is the constitution that makes us different from each other. And there are two such constitutions. This is the mental and body constitution. The mental and body constitution actually creates the personality. So this makes us different from each other. The other constitutions make us share common characteristics across a group, whereas this characteristic, the individual and the physical and mental constitution, makes us entirely different from others. And this is where our fingerprint lies. And today we will look at mental and physical constitution, an overview, how to understand what we are, and some general introduction. We cannot go into very detailed understanding because this is an introductory webinar, but we will just share some concepts which will enable you to understand how to assess mental and physical constitution, not in a detailed way, but in a very pragmatic, very simple, practical way. So here is a summary. The individual is created through a combination of genetic factors, epigenetics, and individual factors. When all the three come together, we are created in a very unique manner. So this is the Ayurvedic view of how the human being is born and expressed. So it's very comprehensive. It's very interesting to see how these theories do not contradict any modern findings, and modern scientific findings can add more information, can enrich these concepts, make us to understand them better. But the foundational theories in Ayurveda are quite comprehensive. So with this understanding, so let me just point out here that the individual constitution, we have the mental constitution here, which is tamas, sattva, and rajas. And then we have the physical constitution, which is made up by vata, pitta, and kapha. So far, is it all clear? Now we are going to go into a little bit detailed discussion about mental and physical constitution. So since we are shifting to a new topic, yes, I just wanted a confirmation that so far is clear. Okay, great, good. So then we can move on to discussing first the mental constitution. So you can see here that the mind is designed to evolve, whereas the body is designed to degenerate. This is very interesting. The mind and body moves in opposite directions. When we are young, our mind is not so evolved. As we grow older, our mind evolves. But every moment from birth, our body is actually degenerating. So the body is degenerating and the mind is evolving. And that is what makes our life such a contradiction and such a difficult equation to handle. So we have to preserve the evolution of the mind even when the body is degenerating. So that is a challenge. And that is what the knowledge of the physical constitution will help us to understand. So I hope this point is clear. There are three categories. Here, I'm sorry, I cannot avoid Sanskrit terms. You will have to get familiar with these terms. Tamas is one, rajas is one, and sattva. I hope you're able to read these terms. Is anybody finding difficulty with these terms? Tamas, rajas, sattva. In future, when you are learning Ayurveda, these three terms cannot be avoided. So is it very difficult for you, or can we go ahead with these terms? Anybody finding these Sanskrit terms difficult? Okay, great. So I will also briefly explain what they mean Tamas means, simply it means many things: darkness, inertia, and enveloping. We can say it also denotes, masking of knowledge. So it's a trait of your mind. Your mind has the ability to stop, to pause, and to just lose awareness. So we can say tamas also in essence means lack of awareness. So that is tamas. Here you can see this is lack of awareness. Is this clear? Lack of awareness. Maybe I should use the text tool. Yeah, I'm just taking a little time to explain the Sanskrit. So it means, I'm sorry, there's some difficulty in trying to write on the slide. So tamas means lack of awareness. That's fine. So, and rajas actually means, turbulence in the mind. And it means also projection of the mind. It means wrong awareness. So when you are not aware of something, you say we are affected by tamas. When you misunderstand something, we say that you are affected by rajas. And actually sattva is proper awareness, an undisturbed state of the mind. So you can see this, you can see that in the very young stage, when children are very young, they are overpowered by tamas, they are having very little awareness. When they are adolescent and when they are in that stage of maturation, they are affected by rajas, their mind is very turbulent, and as they grow, they gradually develop sattva, or they develop proper awareness. So this is how the mind evolves. So I hope you got some idea of the three gunas. These are called as the three gunas. You will get better understanding as we proceed further, but I think for this is fine. And then we talk about the degeneration of the body, and we say that in the beginning stage of your life, kapha is dominant, which means the body is conserving more energy than it spends. That is what we mean by kapha is dominant. Body is able to conserve more energy than it spends. And when we say pitta, pitta is transformation. The body is transforming energy when pitta is dominant. So this is in the middle age. And then we have vata, which means body is spending more energy than it can conserve. And then it eventually collapses. So that is vata. So the body goes through three phases. In the first phase it is kapha, then it is pitta, and then it is vata. So the body and mental constitution, you can say, are created by a unique interplay of these three forces. From the mental plane, tamas, rajas, and sattva, and from the physical plane, kapha, pitta, and vata. At this point, I need a confirmation from you that you're able to follow what I'm saying, because I try to connect a little bit of complex understanding of the body and the mind. Yes, anybody needs any further explanations, or else we can move forward? Okay, great. So this is a graphical representation of, how the energy transformation occurs. You can consider the body as a charger, and ojas is like the charge, tejas is a converter, and prana is energy, and mind is life expression. There's the body is being continuously charged, and the energy is being converted into prana, and that's how the mind is expressing. In young age, you are able to continuously charge the body, whereas in old age, you can only use what charge you already develop. You cannot further enhance it. So now you can see how we become unique. Yes, please go ahead with your question. Okay, you got this previous slide. So yes, how is Prakriti related to this universal regeneration? Yes, so in some individuals, a particular dosha is dominant. So some people are kapha constitution, which means in every stage of life, they have a certain advantage. In their body will be preserving more energy compared to others, even when they are in the middle life or even in old life. So a kapha constitution in old age will have an edge over other constitutions. Similarly, a vata constitution will spend more energy even in young age. So these natural degenerative tendencies are exaggerated. They get either exaggerated or minimized by constitution. I hope this point is understood. So naturally you are kapha in the young age, pitta in the middle age, and vata in the old age. But if you are kapha constitution, then even in middle and old age, you are more kapha than the other people. So you have an advantage. So this is really very important to understand when we plan treatment. So that is why constitution is so crucial. In a similar way, sattva, rajas, tamas, there are some people who are more sattva even in a young age. Some others take a longer time to develop sattva. So we will come to that when we study the constitution. We'll look more into details of the constitution. So now I want to tell you how the combinations of the gunas and the doshas create innumerable personalities. Actually, you get infinite combinations. I cannot list all of them. Infinite combinations are possible of the gunas and doshas. So the three gunas and the three doshas combine in infinite ways, and that is how each individual becomes unique and different. And in the next slide, I want to show just some of the possibilities, some simple possibilities. But these are, just tip of the iceberg. Like you can have a vata body with a sattva mind. You can have a vata body with a sattva rajas mind. You can have a vata body with a rajas sattva mind, and so on and so forth. And you can have a vata kapha body with a sattva mind, vata kapha body with a sattva rajas mind. And if you further subdivide the doshas, the doshas can be subdivided into 63 groups at least, and even further. And when you subdivide them according to the gradation of their dominance, then we get infinite combinations of constitutions and personalities. Is this point understood? Okay. So how the gunas and the doshas combine and create complex personalities. So we will not discuss, we will discuss some general concepts of how to understand the physical and mental constitution. And then in each individual, we have to assess what is the degree of the combination, how it is expressing in that individual. That's a very elaborate study, and we may not be able to complete all that in the webinar, but you can get the first steps. And as you practice and as you understand more and more individuals, and if you also get a chance to work with people who are experience, gradually you will get an understanding of how to assess constitution. So I have to warn, this is a topic which cannot be studied in a few days. It takes a few years for us to become an expert in studying constitution. I hope you will know that even to read an X-ray properly, you need a few years of good training. An MRI cannot be read and studied. You need to do a special course for that. So you can imagine how human personality, which is so complex, you cannot study it in a matter of a few hours. So please don't be disappointed if you think this is not giving you complete knowledge, because you're dealing with a complex subject, and human being is one of the most complex creations in the universe. So let us take time. This we can consider as a first baby steps. And in future, I'm sure over a period of few years, when you practice this, you will get a better idea of how to assess constitution. So is that okay? So now we look. So I want to tell you that, again, so I'm just giving you some simple classifications with the warning that in actual practice we subclassify into so many minute combinations. But at least the major ones, you have a constitution, physical constitution, which may be balanced, we call as samadosha. All the doshas are balanced. And you can have a very vata dominant personality, or you can have a pitta dominant personality, or you can have a kapha dominant personality. You can have a vata pitta dominant. And please understand that vata pitta, a person in whom vata and pitta are dominant, is different from a person in whom pitta and vata are dominant. So these can come in different combinations. There may be an individual who has pitta kapha and another individual who has kapha and pitta, and both of these are different. So also we can have vata kapha and kapha vata. So these are also different. So, you know, all of these combinations, at least these, if you can begin to understand in the beginning, it will help a lot in assessing physical constitution. So this would mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, at least 13 combinations of the doshas. Which ones you would like to focus? The simplest is 7 types. And then you have 10 types. And then 13. So if you are able to, that you can decide, I would suggest that you start first with discriminating 7 types, and then when you get comfortable, you can go to, 10 types and then 13 types. So is this clear? Okay. So now we look at the 3 doshas, and as I was saying, vata means energy utilization. So vata is that which is responsible for all activities of the body, sensation and action. And pitta is responsible for energy transformation, and kapha is responsible for energy conservation. So it's the simplest principle of understanding physical constitution is that when you see any individual, you have to judge whether his body is an energy conserving system or an energy transforming system or an energy utilizing system. So these are the 3 simple ways to distinguish between the 3 constitutions. So let us look at it practically. There's a person who always is hyperactive, eats more but feels drained out, gets exhausted very easily. What type of constitution can this be? Yes, exactly. So this is very simple. Now here is a person who is very organized, very creative, sharp, and intelligent, balances energy use and preservation. What type of constitution is this? Yes, it's very simple. And then we have, oh, this is Pitta, this is Pitta, this is not Kapha. Creative, sharp, intelligent, balanced. Then there's a person who is not so active and eats less but is still energetic. And this is Kapha. So generally we can understand these three constitutions, but extreme constitutions are rare. We don't really find individuals who are purely Vata, Pitta or Kapha. But if you look around, you can identify a lot of people. They come in combinations. That is why we are sometimes confused. We are not able to, that is why the threefold classification of Prakriti is not useful. Because you cannot find pure Pitta, pure Kapha or pure Vata. You always find combination. But once in a while you can see individuals who are, specifically dominant in one particular dosha. So I hope this part is clear. So we go next further. So I want to tell you some methods. This is a very simple method to quickly assess Prakriti. Please don't misunderstand that this is enough to become a good clinician because you are attending only a small webinar. This is for practical use, for your own self-assessment or for assessment of family or friends, but not for clinical purposes. I hope that is understood. Then I will go forward. This is not for clinical use because this is not enough for clinical use. So there are few parameters that you can quickly check to understand what is the Prakriti of a person. And these are, one is the nature of the bowel, then hunger tolerance, temperature tolerance, the weight gain loss pattern, skin response to environment, response to stress, the speech characteristics, and then the nature of the intelligence. So by doing a rapid assessment of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characteristics, you can understand what is dosha prakriti. So we will look at some of these characteristics now. You can see here emotions. People who are very much expressing emotions of lust, sorrow and fear. The first response to any situation is fear, sorrow or lust. These are the Vata persons. So Vata persons will respond with these emotions. So I'm just using the pointer. You can see these are the emotions of the Vata constitution. Now the Pitta constitution will respond with anger. So Pitta person is an individual who will get very easily angry, very easily provoked. And then we have the Kapha person who can get very happy or he can become very depressed. So by understanding their emotional tendencies, so you can ask or you can observe people how they are normally. When a situation comes, what is their, because every person can be angry, every person can be happy, every person can be fearful. So we have to look at dominance. What is the most, certain people are extremely fearful. They are dominantly fearful. And then you can see that there is an influence of Vata. So this is one way by studying the emotions that you can understand what type of person it is. And then we have intelligence. Vata people are very cunning. They have quick grasping but short-term memory. They look extremely intelligent but they cannot remember for long. And they are the ones who are able to think very crookedly. In other words, they are very cunning. And then we have Pitta, which has got very analytical intelligence, a very sharp memory. And Kapha has synthetic intelligence, long-term memory. So, Vata intelligence is very creative. Please note this. People who are very creative show a Vata characteristic. People who are very organizing show a Pitta characteristic. And people who are very practical, application level intelligence is Kapha. So you can say Vata is creative intelligence, Pitta is organizing intelligence, and Kapha is application. And it's synthetic, synthesizes all what others have discovered and is able to bring it into a practical level of application. So this is the difference between the three types of intelligence. Is this clear? Okay. So then we have the speech. It's very interesting. A Vata person, his mind is full of ideas. We call this as a thought diarrhea. A Vata person, he starts with one idea, but even before he can complete it, he jumps to another idea, and then he is confused, and we are all confused. So that is how a Vata person behaves. So just by his speech, he's so anxious. He comes and he topples everything down, and then he's apologetic, and then he adjusts his tie, and then he's very, very expressive, and then he speaks many things, and he's not able to get hold of his thoughts. This is because Vata influences thoughts, and too many thoughts come in the mind of a Vata person. Whereas people who are extremely clear in their speech, very coherent and very sharp, that is fine. You have to look at your creative, because Vata persons are the most creative. So that is you have to tap on your creativity and compensate for something else. And also, if you take more control of your mind, we will come to that later, how you can manage your physical constitution. There's a lot of possibility of how you can make yourself more organized. And then, you have Pitta, people who are extremely coherent, sharp. These are the ones who can be very effective in speeches, and they're very good as leaders. And a Kapha person is speaking very less. And you have to really coax in that person to speak. But when they speak very coherently. They speak to the point, and they are very brief. So these are tendencies which you can see in people, and this will give a clue to what type of doshic constitution they have. So we also have you can look at the bowel movements of an individual, and also you can understand what type of dosha is dominant. A Vata person will have constipated or loose bowels. Sometimes their bowels are very constipated. They cannot move the bowels for days together, or sometimes they have very strong loose movements of the bowels. And then they may have flatulence. They may have discomfort in the bowels. And then we have Pitta people who have easily they get acidity. If they eat, if they drink milk, or they eat some food that's disturbing to the stomach, then they get loose bowels. And they get acidity, heartburn very easily. And this is called, these kind of bowels are very typical of Pitta. So with these descriptions, are you able to look at yourself and begin to judge probably what type of Prakriti you could be? Are we able to get any clues? Okay. So it's very important to see. If your characteristics are consistently matching with one Prakriti, it means that you belong to one dominant Prakriti. But if one feature belongs to one dosha and another feature belongs to another dosha, then you are a combination. So you can now check yourself whether you are combination Prakriti or single. Or in other words, whether you are a single Prakriti, single or mixed type, so that you can also judge. Many people are mixed types, which means they will have mixed features of different Prakritis. And this is also very important. Depending on what feature you have of a particular dosha, you can get a better idea of what you are. Yes, at this stage, I just want you to discriminate yourself whether you are a mixed type or a pure type. Statistically, we have analyzed mixed types are more seen. Single are less. So if you take any group, the number of mixed Prakritis will be more than the single ones. And I think already we have 3:1 here. So there are 3 mixed versus 1 single. So this is a typical ratio. And actually the ratio is much bigger. In some larger studies we found that for every 20 mixed Prakritis there is only 1 single Prakriti. So in a larger group you can test it. So this is also important to know. And as we are discussing, you get an understanding of how to distinguish between single and mixed Prakritis. So we go further to the next features of the Prakritis. Now we are going to look at body weight. You know, we can see the Kapha constitution, which puts weight even without much eating. So the Kapha type is always finding it difficult to shed weight. And the Pitta type gains as well as loses weight very easily. So sometimes gains good weight when they are eating well, or if they don't eat well, then they can also lose weight very easily. And you can assess it with yourself. And there are the Vata types, which cannot gain weight even by eating more. These are the ones finding it very difficult to put on weight. They do many things. So the Kapha and Vata are 2 extremes, one trying to lose weight and the other trying to gain weight. So this is about the body weight and Prakritis. And then we have, you know, the resource management. A Vata person is always spending energy. So even before the salary comes, the Vata person is already thinking of how to spend the money. So before the weekend, the Vata person is busy thinking of what I will do. So even before the money comes, he becomes bankrupt. And everything in his room is all topsy-turvy. It's very difficult for the Vata person to organize things. You go to a Vata person's room and you can see everything all over the place. Everything is scattered here and there. And this is typical of Vata. And a Pitta person, slide 20, just a moment, I will get back. So, because I cannot see the slide number here, can you tell me which slide we are on now so that I can go back? Okay, is this the one? Okay, fine. So this was about the weight gaining and right. Okay, fine. So if you have seen that, then we can move forward. So we have the 3 Prakritis. I was talking about Vata Prakriti, how they are very clumsy and spending more. And then the Pitta person is very transforming. He always likes to change things. But he's very organized. You can see a Pitta person's room will look always very organized. And but he will keep transforming. He will try new things. One day it will look different, another day, but it will be very organized. That's the way it is different from Vata. And Kapha person is very conserving. You can see in a Kapha person's room, the book may not change its place for years together. If he keeps something in some place, it stays there for long time. And Kapha person does not like big changes like Pitta. So his place may remain the same for many years together. So these are tendencies of how these constitutions manage resources. And so then we see there are so many body types coming because of these tendencies. These are the various body shapes, and the body types can also be classified in many ways. We don't have to go deep into this. I just wanted to show that even in modern science, there have been proposals, discussion about the endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph, which seems to correspond broadly to the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha types. But that is another correlation. We are not going to spend time on that. So before we come to the mental constitution, there was just one more point I wanted to make about the physical constitution, is that the Vata intelligence is very creative. So a Vata person has the ability to get new ideas. But the Vata person finds it very difficult to convert that into practice. This is the challenge for a Vata personality. So while the Vata person has very good creative energy, he has very poor organizing energy and very poor ability to pursue it to the end. Whereas a Pitta person has tremendous organizing intelligence. So if a Pitta person gets the idea from a Vata person, then he can develop it into a project. He can create a systematic way of doing it. But a Pitta person is not so good in actually implementing it. He can give orders, he can make people do, but the actual application intelligence, application level intelligence is for Kapha. This is Kapha. So you can see how the three doshas are necessary. All the three doshas, if you form a team, it's very important that you get one Vata, one Pitta, and one Kapha, and then you can be sure that a project will be successful. The Vata person will give creative ideas. If you expect him to implement all of that, then you're creating work stress and your project is going to collapse. So you need a Pitta person to organize. Yes, I think we are beginning to give certain counseling, how to form teams based on the doshas, how to motivate individuals so that you bring their best abilities out. What did you mean by how good is that? You mean okay. Yes. So this is one important application in Ayurveda. In fact, some Ayurvedic doctors are already doing this, in the corporates, even in families. If you understand constitution and understand why people behave in a certain way, and that we shouldn't try to suppress. People break relationships because of this malalignment of the doshas. You can imagine a Vata person and a Pitta person may not go so well because their energies work in different ways. Similarly, Vata and Kapha. But if you have a better understanding, if you try to complement their natures together, then we have better teamwork and better harmony. So this is a very important aspect described in Ayurveda. And we say that it is because of this that there is variety in human life. This variety is the basis of harmony. So when we understand our constitutions, we are able to find our place in the larger scheme of things. And we understand that there is a space where only we can contribute. The Vata person knows that creativity is his field. That is what makes him unique. And a Pitta person knows that organizing is my area. And this is where I can excel. And the Kapha person knows that to sustain something, to see it to the end, that is my area. And so I am unique here. And when the doshas and gunas come in combination, it creates so many unique capabilities that each individual can contribute in a unique way. Yes, this happens. So it's a good observation. And the only problem is that we need very good questionnaires to look into the deeper aspects of the Prakriti. So most of the questionnaires are a bit superficial. So you can get the dominant dosha, but you're not able to get the deeper constitution. And here I would like to share my experience with VedaPulse device. We did a small experiment at our institute to see if VedaPulse could look at the difference in the dominance of the doshas. And we found that it's quite interesting, quite consistent with the clinical assessment, that the pulse device was also able to look at the dosha vikriti. So, yes, exactly. So maybe with such devices which are made more sensitive, we could in the future get more objective ways to understand our prakriti. So anyway, so this is the important aspect of understanding physical constitution, and we looked at the general characteristics of the Vata, Pitta, Kapha constitutions, and I hope you got some thumb rules to make quick assessments. These are just thumb rules. So actually a physician needs to examine and deal with a lot of clients for a few years before can become an expert in assessment of prakriti. And also prakriti, you have different levels of accuracy. And you can always be right without being still not fully correct. That is the beauty of the Ayurvedic classification, because you can know whether a person is Vata, Pitta or Kapha, or what combination is, without really even knowing the deeper details. So even when you work at that general level, you can do a lot of things. And as you work on it, on an individual, you will be able to get even the deeper differences as you go deeper and deeper. So it's also important to understand that we cannot really, assess a person's prakriti at one go. So you need to spend some time, maybe some few months, before you're able to get into the deeper aspects of their personality. So that's all today about the physical constitution. The remaining time we'll look at mental constitution, and then finally we will sum up to see how these two constitutions work together to create human personality. So again, since we are going to a new topic, I just want to confirm that everything is okay and that you are able to follow. Okay. So I hope the sound is also clear. There's been no problem in this session. Okay, great. So then we go to the mental constitution. So here, I want to, please don't worry about some Sanskrit terms. This is just for, yes, please go ahead with the question. According to Ayurveda, prakriti, physical prakriti cannot be changed because it is genetic. But as I said, we can influence, we can manage and control. So that is the whole idea of Ayurveda, how to understand our prakriti, how to manage and how to control its expressions. But mental constitution, our mind, can be changed. So that is a difference. So now we are looking at the mind. So we say that the mind is either sattva, rajas or tamas. There are three types. And as I told you, our mind is continuously shifting. At one moment your mind is blank, at the second moment it is confused, and the third moment it is clear. I hope you have observed this change in your mind. Your mind is completely jumping continuously. One moment blank. I hope you have experienced this. One moment confused, and the next moment clear. So this is the way you can identify the three gunas in your mind. When you are When you're blank, we say your mind is tamas. When you're confused, we say your mind is rajas. And when it is clear, you say it is sattva. So this is continuously happening. So there are some people in whose mind is clear most of the times. So we call them as sattva. There are some people whose mind is most of the time confused, irritated, turbulent. They are called rajas. Some people's mind are most of the time blank. You look at their face and you have a blank look. I mean, they're not able to. They're not aware. Their awareness is a very low level. They are called as tamas. So Ayurveda identified about 16 major such mental types, but there are infinite number of mental constitutions, and we can understand. What Ayurveda says is that it's possible to transform your mind from tamas to rajas and from rajas to sattva. And if you convert your mind to a sattvic stage, then you get the key to control physical constitution. A person whose mind is sattva is able to manage his physical constitution. So this means you need full awareness to control your physical constitution. So the goal in Ayurveda is to help you to transform your mind so that with a sattvic mind you are able to take control over your physical constitution. Your body is like a vehicle, it's like a plane, or it's like a car, or it's like a ship. And you have to get the controls. A person who is tamasic or rajasic is like a pilot or a driver who is driving a vehicle without proper understanding of what's going on. So when you are tamasic or rajasic, you are a slave to your constitution. When you are sattvic, then you get in control over your constitution. So I hope this point is clear. This is the method in Ayurveda for development of your personality. 2 steps. First is transform your mind. And then you control your body. And then you make your journey of life, wonderful and beautiful. Because now you are in control. It's like a plane that is, now you're cruising. Or it's a car which you are now putting into a cruise mode. And it is sailing smoothly. And when you move with your body in that way, then there is less chance of disease. There is less chance of mental turbulence. And you're moving in life in a very smooth manner. So this is the philosophy and concept in Ayurveda. So now I want to tell you how, very quickly, we will rush through these slides, the next slides, because it's only for example. How in olden days they developed some archetypes. They identified some individuals who are representing certain types of mental personalities. And even today we can see these expressions, but in a different way. So for example, in Ayurveda, we talk about Brahma Sattva. In ancient days, the Brahma Sattva was an ascetic who was completely in pursuit of knowledge, not seen by the external world. But today, in his place, we have the scientist who is buried in the lab, not bothered about name or fame, but is pursuing knowledge. Such a mental state is a very high level of sattva. A person who has very high sattva will be engaged in pursuit of knowledge, will forget about himself. So you can see these personalities are created. A scientist is born in the mind and then finds physical expression. So according to the sattvic nature of an individual and the physical constitution, you can find out what type of vocation or profession is most suited for you. So we have Asha. He's also a sattvic person, but you can see he's very expressive. The Asha personality in ancient days were the preachers, the saints who moved around teaching. But today we have a professor in this place. And then we have the Aindra Sattva. As you can see, as the as we move from the scientist, now we have the president, prime minister, chief minister, you can see more and more of activity coming. These are people who are in control. They are, adorning places, important roles in society. Then we have the Yamya, the judge, lawyer, and prosecutor. And then we have the Varuna Sattva. These are people in charge of small locations in the cities. They are the mayors, collectors, and then we have the businessmen, philanthropist, finance head. So these are all representing certain mindsets. We have the Gandharva Sattva, who are film actors, musicians, artists, and poets. So then we come to the Asurik. These are Rajasic personalities. So since I'm going through this a little bit fast, I want to pause and ask you, are you able to get the point that I'm trying to make? Is that how in our textbooks, the personality types have been mapped and they have been identified, those people who are playing certain roles in society. Some of the examples have been shown. This means that you can identify even more such personalities and trace them to particular gunas, whether they are sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. So you can see here, all of them are not purely sattvic. They also have rajas. But the thing is, sattva dominates. So who is a sattvic personality? A person who sattva dominates. So when sattva dominates, now a yama person, he is even able to kill another individual because he decides that a person should be killed. But because he is sattvic, he does it only in a just manner. So that is how the sattvic personality is different. Now we come to the asuric personalities. These are people in whom rajas dominates. So you can also find these are dictators, self-styled leaders, kings and heads of state. And today we can see in many countries, you can distinguish between these two kinds of asuric. There can be either Indra or there can be Asura. So in our ancient texts, this conflict of personalities have been depicted in our epics and legends. We call these as the wars between Indra and Asuras. So Indra is a sattvic leader and Asura is a rajasic leader. So society often suffers when Asuric leader takes over, and this is a perpetual process. So these are personalities which are extremely rajasic. And then we have the Rakshasa personality. These are smugglers, landlords, cutthroat businessmen. They're different from Kaubera. There can be good businessmen also, whom we call as Kaubera. They create wealth in society, whereas these are people who create wealth by wrong means. And then we have Paishacha. These are people who are perverts, who are deviants, and they can actually harm others in their pursuit for their own wealth. Then we have backbiters, the middlemen, the villains. These are also expressions of a rajasic personality. Then the Praita personality, which are underworld thugs, murderers, serial killers. Now you may, you want the slides to go more slowly? Fine. I'll pause for a moment because these are slides did not want to discuss much. This is just because these discussions will take a long time. What I wanted to point out is that according to the personality, there is a specific method of managing them, which we cannot discuss in our webinar today. That is actually a special course on Ayurvedic psychology, how to handle different personalities and how to identify them in today's society. So a Paishacha personality has to be handled in a different way, and a Asura personality has to be handled in a different way. If you use the same approach, you cannot handle them. So that is the practical purpose of understanding these personalities. Today, I just wanted to give you an overview of some of the main personalities discussed in our texts. And that very quickly, when you see people, you should be able to judge whether they are sattva dominant or rajas dominant or tamas dominant. So I will go a little bit more slowly. So this is the Sarpa, these are the backbiters, middlemen, villains. And then we have, the Praita personalities. These are people who don't show themselves outside. They're very discreet. They hide themselves. They are underworld thugs, murderers, serial killers. And you can see, we have this bomb blast in the airport. These are the people who come without anybody seeing or understanding them. And what is very important is that we say these are not permanent traits. That is the most beautiful thing. A dosha prakriti, a vata prakriti does not have to be a criminal. Criminality is something which we can change through education. That is a positive message. So Ayurveda does not say that a person is preta forever. So he may be vata forever. And that vata, when it becomes sattva, our mentality is partly inherited and mostly molded by circumstances. That is why education is so important. And we say that in order for sattva to develop, emotional, training or emotional education is the most important. And that is what is lacking in modern society. We are not able to address the emotional needs of the children when they grow, and we are not able to tone them up at that level. So even if the more information they get, the more dangerous they become. So yes, all the 5 dimensions. We have to deal with the individual, even in education at all the 5 levels. So what Ayurveda strongly says is that if you start your education at a very young age, then you can prevent these personalities from developing. No human being is destined to become a bad personality unless he is forced to by wrong development and wrong training and wrong exposure. So this, I think, is a very, very positive message from Ayurveda. And we say that disciplining them has to be done with understanding of that psychology rather than just by law and punishment, which may be required. Law and punishment is only an emergency measure. It may be needed in certain critical situations, but it is not a solution. So we need to, the whole society needs to know and learn how to understand these personalities and how to handle them, and that's part of Ayurvedic psychology. It's too much beyond the scope of our discussion today. So we see the other personalities, the Shaguna, these are the drug addicts and vagabonds, and then we have the Pashava. So now we come to the Tamasic. These are people who don't want to do anything else, but they like to indulge in food, sex, and sleep, and they lack much intelligence. So these are Pashavas. Then we have the Matsyas. These are wandering, indulgent, lustful people who may beg and just, they're not violent. They are very, very harmless, but they move around and they try to get things just to survive, but they will not attack, or they rather beg, and they may, this is the nature of the Tamasic person. Is very fearful, very withdrawn. And then we also have the Vanaspatya. They are completely lazy, intelligent, and dumbhead, and they just don't even move from their place. So these are the various expressions of personalities. These are produced by the dominance of the Tamasic, Rajasic, and Sattvic minds. We know that in the childhood, the mind is Tamasic. So if by education we don't convert it to Rajas. So education in Ayurveda, we say, is the process of transforming Tamas into Rajas and Rajas into Sattva. So we, in Ayurveda, we have a quality check tool. If you have an educational curriculum, we are not interested in what subjects are taught, because people can learn by themselves today. A lot of information, skills, they are not difficult to learn. But does your curriculum have a methodology which can transform tamas into rajas? Is there a training program? Is there an element in the curriculum that transforms tamas into rajas and rajas into sattva? Then that educational system is good. If this element is not there, then you are going to create harmful personalities in society. So this is a very, very crucial point. And in Ayurveda, we have those guidelines. How can we convert tamas to rajas? How can we convert rajas into sattva? If by the end of education, by the time the students become mature, an adult, we have to completely transform them into sattvic beings. And then you can see that everybody's life will be fully in their control. So this is a beautiful vision and philosophy which Ayurveda offers. And today I was only able to just give you a sketch of this overview. And now the last part. So I think we have another few minutes with which we can do a rapid assessment of the mental constitution of the individual. So here I am going to point out, in the body we had about 8 to 9 points. In the mind there are about 5 quick things you can check to see what is the state of your own mind. You can just first test it on yourself. The first point is the nature of awareness. How is your mind? Is it in a blank state most of the times? Or is it in a state of confusion, misunderstanding, or turbulence? Because confusion creates irritation. Do you agree? Confusion creates irritation. So a confused mind is very easily irritated and so becomes rajasic. And then you have a mind that is aware most of the time. So by just looking at a person's dominance, everybody is blank sometimes, confused sometimes, and aware sometimes, but this dominance varies. So by looking at the dominance, you can easily understand what is your guna. And then the emotional disposition. Please ask yourself, what is your first reaction to a situation? Is it fear? If you are responding to situations, first of all due to fear, then it is due to tamas. The vatic fear, the fear from your body, is more reflex. It will go away after the first response. But the fear that is coming from tamas will stay. So you will be continuously fearful. A tamasic person is very fearful. And then you can ask yourself whether your mind's first response is anger. Any situation comes, you have a violent reaction. You try to fight it out. Then it is anger. And if you're not so much affected by what happens around you, or you're always calm and able to take a clear decision, then your mind is happiness. And then you have the nature of indulgence. Creative, explosive, and intelligent. The sattvic mind is very creative. The rajasic mind is very explosive. And the tamasic mind is very indulgent. The tamasic mind is not able to resist temptations. They are always, indulging in something or the other. And you can look at the mindset of an individual. A sattvic person is very accommodative. And a rajasic person is very intolerant. So if you have a lot of rajas, if somebody comes and sits near you or moves in front of you, you may get extremely irritated and you begin to shout. Whereas a sattvic person is very accommodative. He knows if he wants, he can attack, but he doesn't. Whereas a tamasic person is very fearful, he's very submissive. If a rajasic person comes, he will immediately, fall at his feet and agree to do whatever he says because he's very fearful. And you can see that a tamasic person needs always assurance. Somebody has to keep telling them everything is okay, everything is okay. So a tamasic person is more like a slave. He's always a subservient person. He always works as a subordinate. Whereas a rajasic person needs praise. He needs to be told, oh, you're great, everything is going fine. Whereas a sattvic person is not affected by praise or assurance. He needs objective information. You need to tell a sattvic person the truth, the facts. So this is a simple way to know what is the dominance. Mostly we may be again mixed or single. Most people are again, even with the mind, mixed. So I don't know what results you got. Were you able to understand this concept? Okay. So as I again told you, this is a very quick way of assessing your mind. And so this is what I wanted to, yes, most people are mixed, but you can very carefully know whether you're sattvic, sattva dominant rajas, or rajas dominant sattva. So sattva dominant rajas is actually very good for society. They are very active, very forward thinking, but rajas dominant sattva can be little harmful. So in this way you can see which ones are dominating, and you can try to bring the sattva dominance in you by understanding your own personality. So now we come to almost the end of our discussion today, and I want to say Ayurveda is out-of-box thinking. We are trying to understand what a person is individually, how he or she is unique, how a person can begin to love himself or herself just because they are what they are. And this is the key to knowing your mind so that you can take control of your body. The body is the vehicle in which we are moving in our life. And so Ayurveda says, take people out of the boxes. Don't put them into boxes. Understand them for what they are, how unique they are. And that is the beginning of healing. Understanding the person, that is the basis of treatment, not understanding the disease. And that is why Ayurveda is person-centered medicine. So I think with this, we are coming to the end of our session today. And I hope this made sense and that you will eventually find ways to apply these concepts in your actual practice and help people. Because I think to understand these concepts of Prakriti is not just to become a physician. It can make you become a better and more creative and better human being. So thank you. It was great again to give this webinar, and I think we will conclude here. Thank you.